All right, looks like we're live. Well, welcome everybody. Thanks for joining us today. I'm Gareth Connor. I'm the Director of Controls Technology with Wenger Corp.
I'm Andy Knapp. I am the Performing Arts Product Manager.
And I'm Cody Green. I'm a Senior Automation Engineer for Wenger.
Fantastic. Once again, thank you guys for showing up. Today what we're going to do is a couple of things. First off, we want to show you our latest product, Spikemark Vantis. That's our pendant interface for the Spikemark system. And then we're also going to show you the kind of generic Spikemark architecture. So some folks that are joining the call, you guys have been fans of the Spikemark system for a long time. That might be old hat for you, but we imagine we got new folks here too that need to see what the rest of the system looks like. Before we dive into the details of what Spikemark Vantis is, I want to give a little bit of a backstory about how we got here. So of course, Creative Commons was acquired by Wenger Corp back in April of 2025, and we brought with us the Spikemark system, and of course, J.R. Clancy had the Vantis system. And as we looked at the two systems side by side, both had their strengths. Spikemark has long had a history of running shows, and we often thought it was a pretty simplified user interface for running automation systems. But we kind of had to take a step back and really objectively analyze that when we looked at the kind of beautiful simplicity that Vantis brought to the table. And what we decided that what we really wanted to do was bring that idea of that very simple, easy to use, approachable workaday kind of automation interface to Spikemark. Because if we look at the Spikemark system today, as user-friendly as we think it is, if you're a traditional automation operator, it's actually a bit of a 747 cockpit. And I think Christian's going to throw up a user interface there, a shot of the UI, right? So this is the Spikemark interface that we know and love, but we're like, yeah, sure, this is no big deal. Everybody could use this. But when we looked at what Vantis had, we realized, boy, that's our interface is a little bit intimidating if you're not doing this every day as a pro. So by contrast, if we look at what we've done with Spikemark Vantis, and Cody's going to show you that now.
Right spot.
Yeah, we got to get framed up just right. You can see how much more simplified and condensed this looks. So this gives you a ton of power, but in a very easy to use form factor that's a little more approachable for the everyday Joe. And actually, as we've been using it more and more ourselves, we find it pretty handy as well. So we've got a bunch of machines set up here. We got a bunch of control stuff. We're going to be demoing these things. We got 800 cameras, so we can flip stuff around. Oh, I forgot to. We introduced ourselves, but off camera, Christian and Izzy are both sitting off camera. And ironically, these are the two engineers that actually brought you most of Spikemark Vantis, and we're just going to stand up here and take all the credit for it. Because that's what we do best. Like we do. But so some of the great things that you can do with Spikemark Vantis that we like to show off is that unlike Vantis and some of the other traditional rigging programs, it can control just about anything. So if we take a look at, like, say, we can run a deck track, and we've got a deck track sitting right here. And so Cody can just grab that deck track and shoot a pallet across the stage. Boo! And you can go from running your little deck track to also maybe grab a spot hoist and bring a spot hoist in. Come down. Et voila. Or you could even grab a rig with some chain hoists on it as well. And so you can dynamically, on the fly, grab just anything that has a motor on your stage. You can grab it with Spikemark Vantis and take immediate control of it. So that's the big picture overview. If we want to get into literally running stuff, Andy, what's our first move here?
So you'll notice when you look at Cody's screen, right, he has a couple of axes at the bottom that he can select. If he wants to move one of them, it's just as easy as poking that machine that he really wants to move. It shows up in the selection view on the top. All he has to do is hold the enable button on the right and then give it a direction with the joystick, and away you go. Now, if he wants to move something to a specific position, that's
Well,
just
let me pause you even before there. So you got one thing moving, right? Whoa, what if we wanted to move 2 things?
Oh, right.
Or 3? So what you can do there is Cody's just long pressing, and much like you'd see on like a, in your Google Photos app or anything like that, if you long press, you get a multi-select interface. So if you're singly bopping between selections, you just poke, poke, poke. But if you want to multi-select, you press and hold. You get those little circular indicators showing you the selection. And once you've got them all selected,
away you go.
now you can do multi-select, right? So, and that I think is a very, very common use case on stage, especially if you're bringing in a bunch of line sets and everything. You might want to grab multiple sets at once. It's super easy and convenient to do it.
Totally. And
And
now, if Cody wanted to go to an absolute position, right? All he has to do is select which machine, select move to position, type in exactly where he wants it to go, hit enter or load rather, and then all he has to do is hold down that blinky green button, which is the enable button, or hold the run, right? As soon as it completes, we're good to go.
Then that's pretty slick, because then you can just like poke in any position you want to move to very rapidly, right?
That's right. But what if you wanted it to go to that position all the time?
Right.
Well,
We want to, like, almost as if we wanted to spike it.
right, exactly. So if you wanted to create a target that you go to over and over again, in the system that is called a spike. So just like you would put on spike tape on your stage to set where you want a chair to go, or in this case, the automation, Cody is able to just press the plus sign, and then he is able to name the spike, and then he also is able then to put it in that position. And if we want to double check to see if that spike worked out, you just have to jog off of it, and then load the spike. Again, you get that satisfying blinky green button that you just have to hold down until it hits that spike. And if that spike isn't exactly where you want it to go and you need to edit it, all Cody has to do is double tap, and then he gets right in there again, and he can adjust the I don't know, 10 inches, if that sounds good. And
I did 30, but yep.
Yeah,
wow.
yeah. Drive it like you stole it, I say.
Indeed. And then load it again, and away you go. Easy as that.
That's pretty great. I mean, that's super easy to like both make a new spike position, recall a spike position, edit a spike position. What do you got to do to like save those spikes to make sure that stuff is always backed up for you?
It's automatically saved as soon as you type it in.
What?
It's all there.
It's all there.
That's fantastic. So, and I think that once you've done that, right, we've shown how you can very quickly kind of select things, move them kind of ad hoc on stage, whether you're just jogging them on a joystick, you're keying in a specific value, or you're using saved positions as spikes. Eventually, you're going to want to graduate to the point where it's like, yes, but I want to move many things, maybe in a complex sequence of movements. And that's where we get to presets. So presets for us they're slightly analogous in the show world to cues, but this would be any sequence of movements that are going to restore the stage to a specific look. So I often think of things like if you're going to be setting up for a speaker to come on stage, you got to like say move some masking into place, lower a projection screen, and I don't know, fly in a border or something along those lines. That could be all part of a preset. Or if you're going to deploy an orchestra shell and get the room ready for an orchestra performance, you want to deploy banners, an orchestra shell, that might need to be many steps, moving many motors, but that could all be encapsulated in one preset move that has all of those motions captured in it. So on Spikemark Vantis, this is pretty straightforward. So Cody, if you press that little mode switcher, we get into what we call the preset workspace. So our first workspace there was the jog workspace. Now we see presets. Presets are pretty cool because what you see there is you've got a bunch of images and descriptions in kind of a scrolling visual list. And both that 3D image and that English description of the movements are automatically generated by Spikemark. So you're not having to create those yourself. Instead, once you make the sequence, that stuff's all auto-generated and presented down on the Vantis pendant. So to select one, to make something move, all Cody has to do is just press it. That kind of loads it up, and you get that, again, the blinky green button. And you can see here, we can see that there's 3 motors that are going to be moving. You get a little bit of a description of what's about to happen. And if he presses that button, boonk, away they go, right? And everything is moving in real time. You're seeing updates on screen. You have a tile for every motor that's moving on that sequence. And that little rocket ship is pointing in the direction of either forward or reverse, and then closing in on the target value that's a little like endpoint stick, if you will. Now, that's a very simple preset, right? We just had 3 motors. They're each going to a specific target position, but these can get more complicated than that. So if he loads up this next one, we're going to see multiple steps here. And when you see the steps, they're chunked out in that 1, 2, 3, 4. And as he runs it, and you can go ahead and start running, Cody. As he runs it, the steps will be lit up. If they're green, they're executing. Once they're blue, that means they're done. Then we go to the next step, which is now green. And you can, the nice thing about that interface, I think, is that you always get to see what's happening and you know where you are in that process. Sweet. And I didn't even stand underneath the truss this time. So, and then the last thing I wanted to point out about these guys is that because they are really backed by the same core technology that powers Spikemark Qs, they can do all sorts of things. So these can, of course, run motors, but also we can do things like send OSC signals to trigger lighting changes, or send OSC signals to trigger projection cues and things of that nature. So this one is supposed to do something. I'm not sure what.
The balls are changing color, but
The balls are changing color.
they're really hard to see.
Gotcha. On the oh yeah, I'm looking at the camera shot and I'm like, I can't even tell that they're changing, but they're changing color, and we're just sending an OSC message to QLab, which is running the DMX. Oh, that one looks very different. Yes. Yeah. Now green is really different. Yeah. So you can really interact with other systems through presets. All right, I'm gonna do my little cheat sheet to check my notes about where we are in our outline here. This is a Q&A break.
Yeah.
Which is great, because I just got a little buzz on my wrist that said there's a Q. And we're ready for the A.
Yeah, absolutely. So Beth is asking if there's a 3-position enable paddle that Cody is also holding, or if it's a 1-button momentary move. And I think she's talking about both for the jogging direction and then versus the recalling and what's actually happening with the thumbs.
Ah, yeah.
Okay, so it's not a 3-position switch. It is just a mash it all the way switch. It's not the RSI switch.
Yep.
And then for jogging, what was the other part of the question?
I think that probably answers it. But if we want to just get another close-up of for jogging, we get that little paddle on the left that you press in conjunction with the enable button.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then any of the recall.
Yeah, so that joystick there, that is a variable speed joystick on his left thumb.
Yep.
And so if you want to maybe like jump back to jog.
Yeah. So take the truss.
Yeah.
And then we hold the enable button down, but again, it's that one button, not the 3.
Correct. So it is a mash it all the way style button, but you have to hold it down while you're also manipulating the joystick. And if you were to release the enable button, you get an immediate stop, either a Cat 0 or a Cat 1, depending on what the motor controller is on the other end.
Cool. I think that's all the questions for now.
All right. Wow. We timed that out perfectly. We're right on track.
Yeah.
Boom. Aces. All right. So I think it's also a good moment just to reiterate that, like, obviously Creative Commons has a reputation of being primarily in what I would call performance automation or show equipment. But Cody, is that all we're doing today?
That is not all we're doing today. Yeah, so with Spikemark Vantis especially, we're all in on rigging systems, acoustics, all those things can all happen all in Spikemark and through Spikemark Vantis.
Nice. Okay, so the other thing that we wanted to show off is how this is all synchronizing back to the console. So you might be using Spikemark Vantis. Cody is using Spikemark Vantis. But as you're using Vantis and say like adding spikes and so on, I've got push stick selected, and if you look at my cursor down here, I assume you can see my cursor, yes. Cody, why don't you just drop a new spike down, like move somewhere and drop a spike? Or if you're dropping a spike, great. There we go. So boom. So you just added a new spike at roughly 40 inches. So you can see as soon as he did that on the pendant, that's all being sent back to the console. So that's one way in which these things interact. It's just good to know that these things are in fact talking to each other at the same time. But then also, Cody's right now got the pendant in his hands, and Andy has walked over to the console, and they can be manipulating motors simultaneously, but not interfering with each other. So if one of you's got something, I don't remember which one's got what.
I was going to grab the spot line.
I definitely have the push deck, not the spot line.
Great.
Perfect.
Yes, ignore.
So Cody's got the spot line, Andy's got the push stick, and they're able to do their own tasks on the stage without interfering with each other. So just to reiterate that these things are being used simultaneously, right? So we've got one guy on the Spikemark Vantis pendant, another guy on the console. But it doesn't just stop there. We can also have multiple pendants. So Andy now has picked up a second pendant, and he's waking it up. And then they can redo the same thing, but now Andy's now got the truss overhead. Cody's using the spot line. They're moving in different directions. Cats and dogs living together.
Mass hysteria.
Multiple devices. Yeah. Okay. So beyond moving things, you also need to say, stop things.
Oh, sure, yeah. Let me come over here. Yeah, so on the Spikemark Vantis pendant, you can also see feedback from any of the e-stop buttons that are pressed in the system. So right now I've got the pendant here. You can see at the bottom, you can see engaged e-stop, right pendant. If, say, Andy presses the console, you also see the console. You can also see the other pendant. So this will show up in Spikemark on the full Spikemark, but also at the Vantis. So you can see, hey, someone hit the e-stop up in the grid. Now I got to go haul my ass up to the grid, but you at least know where it is.
Right, because I think that, obviously you got to stop things when you hit the e-stop. That's imperative. But the next thing that usually happens after that is knowing how to restart things. So giving that indication through the showstopper system and surfacing it back there on Spikemark Vantis is super critical to making sure that after you've stopped, you can now restart the system and get that feedback from you.
So another cool thing you can do, right?
Yes.
Is this is a great troubleshooting piece, not only standalone, but if it is a part of your system and you want to know, say, if something peaks up and says you've got some sort of indication that something's wrong, right? All you have to do is double tap on the actual machine and it'll give you a list of what could be wrong in there. See, looks like we've got a whole mess of stuff. What's going on over
what's
here?
going on? Perhaps I just yanked a cord out.
Yeah.
So let me jam that cord back in.
And then from there, Cody can actually easily reset the drive if necessary.
Yeah, so we can see here that we've got a drive fault. We know that's an encoder loss. We hit reset. Bam. No faults. We're good to go. We can start moving. Right back at it.
Right back at it. Some other cool things you can do from that window, right? If your jog speed is a little too fast, you can adjust it from there. If you have, say, permissions.
Right, yeah.
But then there is also...
well, it's pretty great, right? That there are some, you don't get every configuration parameters serviced on Spikemark Vantis, but those kind of most common ones that you might want to adjust. Especially, I mean, jog percentage is a great one, right?
Yep.
Because it is a variable speed jogging joystick. So if you find that it's too sensitive, in fact, we've seen that sometimes, especially like on high speed hoist, you got a 6 foot per second hoist or something like that, and that's maybe a little, you maybe don't want all of that right on the joystick, that you don't have to then return back to the console to make that configuration change. You can do it right there on the pendant.
Absolutely.
Unless you're not authorized to do so, right? Because I think it's great to point out that all of this is based on the same very robust Spikemark permission system, that you can get super granular about which operator is allowed to edit and change what things. So we've set up a bunch of different logins, and so if you log out of our pendant here, we were logged in as admin, so in kind of God mode, but if we log in as just op, lowercase op, and then the very tricky password of 12345, which is super secure and happens to be the same password we set up on all these, so don't flub it in the live demo. This is the operator. So that operator can run but can't edit anything. So now I've tried to change that max jogging position, or jogging percentage, I mean. Boom, boom, boom.
Oh.
Nope. Then I would totally let you do it. That was not what that was supposed to be at all.
Oh.
What's that? Oh, update
But
percentage.
default speed.
But default speed, sorry, we have the wrong permissions. There we go. There's something that we can't, Christian had to tag team us in there. Yeah. So that was a setting that we were not configured to be able to change based on the permissions set in the user profile. And you can see there that it came up with the red badge that said, hey, you can't change that. So, and all of those things, I mean, you could have locked out percentage, we just hadn't locked it out. All of those things you can really dial in user by user. And Spikemark kind of by default comes with, 3 levels? But then you can customize them as you see fit to really dial it in. So that was a lot of things that we just covered there, all the way from like multi-pendant to configuration parameters. We're going to pause here for a moment and see if we've got any questions.
We've got a lot of questions.
Oh boy.
Teams also screwed me over a little bit and delayed the questions from the last Q&A. So we got a nice build up.
Okay.
So if people would like to leave any extra questions, I will actually check. And while we're doing that, so from a little while ago, Mike asks, is the system capable of profile recording over multiple axes? And separately, what is the safety backbone of the system? Which the safety we will get into in a little bit, but the profile recording.
So kind of I assume what the question there is like, can it do kind of a teach and learn sort of thing? So like drive it with a joystick and record the profile as we're going. Mike, if that's not your question, just let us know. The easy answer is nope, it doesn't do that. The joystick really just is there for jogging. We don't do any sort of kind of learn the flight, as it were, as you're going. Yeah, if you're going to do something like a complex motion profile like that, like a performer flight, unfortunately the dissatisfying answer there is you really are programming that in bit by bit. You can do it for sure, but it's a lot of manual trajectory moves and triggers and stuff.
Specifically through Spikemark.
Through Spikemark, yep.
Yeah, for multiple axes, you can record a spike, and that's about the closest thing that we can get for multiple axes, because that was part of the question.
I see. Yes, for multiple. Yes, I'm sorry. Yes, so you can. So there's a couple of things there to tease apart, I guess. So one, yes, good point. You could move multiple axes into position and record a spike across them. You can also, in full-blown Spikemark console, say, move a bunch of axes into the right location and record all of that as part of a queue or part of a preset. So yes, those are ways that you could attack it, but none of them being kind of a teach and learn. Although I may be just interjecting, putting words in your mouth if that was what you were asking or not. What's the next question?
Yeah,
here?
Next question. In a multi-machine preset move, in the event of a fault for one machine, does everything stop, or just the machine and the fault stop, and the rest continue as queued?
That's a great question, and it depends is the answer. So there, generally speaking, in the most vanilla circumstances, if you get a fault on a single machine, the rest of the move continues to completion. The things that would impact that would make that not true, is if that machine was part of a group. So if you, in Spikemark, we have the concept of groups where you can take a bunch of motors and put them into either a locked group, which is what we have, say, on these chain hoists here, where they always move simultaneously into the same distance. They move as if they were one. But you could have also an unlocked group where that is basically just saying if one of them faults, the rest of them also stop. So if the motor that faulted was part of a group, the rest of that group would also stop. The other thing that would potentially mess up your flow in a multi-step sequence is that if that motor was part of the next step, that would also stop the sequence at that point.
But in the current move, if it's not grouped, one faults, the rest of them will continue and complete their movements.
That is correct, yep.
Great. Okay. Next question from Beth. Is the pendant running as a remote to the full Spikemark install on the console, or can the Spikemark Vantis pendant run independently? Is there a server somewhere running Spikemark somewhere regardless of controller? Which is a great question.
Which is a great question, and it's a hot topic for us. So I will tell you the current state. The current state is pendant is always running as a remote to Spikemark. And so the Vantis pendant is communicating back to a server of some kind. Today we're running that as console, but you could run that as like a headless server as well running Spikemark. There is some initial poking around the edges of basically self-hosting the server on the pendant. But in terms of what's shipping right now, there's always a Spikemark running somewhere, be it console or hidden in a rack somewhere.
Great. And I think that covers most of the questions. We've also answered a couple more in the chat, so I think as long as nobody else has anything else, last call. We are
not really last call, just last call for this round.
Yes, sorry, last call.
We will have more time at the end, guys.
Yeah.
But
yes.
No, we're doing great on time too. So awesome. Plenty of time for questions. Okay. Because that actually gives us, that's the end of kind of the demo of the Spikemark Vantis and what the Spikemark Vantis has. Oh.
And there's one more question that just rolled in that I think is good. Does the Vantis pendant have any different hardware than existing Spikemark pendants for those who might have them?
Oh, that's a fantastic question. Thank you for that. No, it is exactly the same. The only thing that has literally changed on the hardware is the faceplate that now says Vantis. So it is the same hardware, it is just a software change. So if you are a current owner of the Spikemark pendant and you download Spikemark 6.3, you will now have the most recent Vantis interface that you see us displaying today. That's a free update. I would caveat that a little bit too and say that if you're running, because there are two previous models of the Spikemark pendant prior to Spikemark Vantis. So Spikemark pendant V2 and Spikemark Vantis are literally the same hardware. Spikemark pendant V1, you may very well need you will need a firmware update, and depending on how that goes for you, the fastest path may be for us to send you an SD card with the current firmware on it. Those are capable of over network firmware, but depending on the exact date of release, it still may be faster for us just to drop you a micro SD card with the image on it. But anyway you slice it, if you have current Spikemark pendant hardware, that's going to be upgraded automatically to Spikemark Vantis interface.
I think that we are actually all caught up now. So
sweet, awesome. So the thing that we wanted to do now, so we've given you kind of the show and tell of Spikemark Vantis. we wanted to now walk through some of the Spikemark architecture of the entire system. And Cody's going to be our Sherpa on this. And along the way, we can maybe pause at, we'll pause at maybe a couple of points along there for any, probably right after console. Pause for any questions, because there might be questions directly on console. That's probably the most, anyway.
Yeah.
Let's get into it.
Yeah,
And I think now we're going to the handheld. Christian with the handheld.
Whoa.
What?
Sweet. Yeah, so this is the Spikemark console. So we've got 4 playbacks here for complex sequences. You got live adjust on your speed for while you're running cues. We've got our jog paddle for jogging things, e-stop, big hold to run button. So this also has the computer baked right into it. So this is what is currently hosting Spikemark that the Spikemark Vantis is using. And then we're running Spikemark here in the jog workspace. The other thing that we've been talking a lot about is the Spikemark Vantis pendant. We've seen a lot about that, but yeah, this is ours. It's got a nice little face mount on it, so you can have a little spot to stick it. 1 cable, which is really nice, really flexible. We make it. It's great. Yeah, anything else to say about console? Do you want to?
That's a good, yeah, you're getting a shot from the back there.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Sweet. That shows the Dell Optiplex.
Yep.
That's just slotted in from the back that Cody mentioned.
Yep. And then it gets its e-stop from the Showstopper accessory cable here, which we're going to talk about in a second. Yeah.
I think also worth pointing out that it fits within a 19-inch rack. So for anyone that's thinking about installing it in a rack, it does in fact fit.
Yep.
Both for touring and just for locking it down on site.
Totally.
Do we want to pause for any questions on console? Did anything come in there yet? Izzy?
Let's see. No, nothing's coming in yet for the console.
Okay, and I guess also worth mentioning, right? So the console runs Spikemark, and it's the best way, absolutely the best way to run Spikemark. However, Spikemark is still free download. So if you are curious about testing out Spikemark, you can download it for free. It also comes with a full-blown simulator, so you can run it and try out queuing, try out presets. That all works with all the OSC messages and everything that we were speaking about, so that if you wanted to try and see how does it work with projection mapping, how does it work with triggering other systems, all of that works on the free version that you can download from our website. So,
How often does it update, Gareth?
that's a great question, Andy. Thanks for asking. We update on basically a 2-month cycle. There's a little bit of squish there, but roughly every 2 months we're coming out with a new release of Spikemark with sometimes big updates like Spikemark Vantis, sometimes smaller updates, bug fixes, etc. But 2 months dev cycles is that's our cadence.
What we aim for.
Mm-hmm.
Sweet.
Awesome sauce.
Cool.
Also all free to download, by the way.
Yeah. Sweet. So now we're going to come over and take a look at some of the other architectural boxes. So our system is all modular and connectorized, so you can expand as you would like. So for permanent installs, we have things like this is a drive connection, so this plugs into your e-stop and your network to bring it onto the Spikemark network to plug in your Stagehand. This one is a local box. We also, for like rigging systems, we'll do it in like wireways and things like that. That also has your power connector to run the drives. This is a control point. So this has our pendant connector as well as our showstopper accessory. So that'll bring in any of the e-stop devices throughout your system.
So that could be used, like, say, for plugging. Yeah, I think maybe you already said, but for plugging a console that plugs into the accessory port plus the Ethernet, or you can plug in a Vantis pendant through the pendant port. As you also mentioned, the accessory port allows you to expand out the emergency stop system as well. Everything is modular and flexible, and you can add on to it over time or just temporarily. And that connector is what gets you that expansion on the emergency stop system.
Totally. Yeah, and we could actually, it's a little out of order from the paper, but we can pop over to this. So these are some of the showstopper devices. Like Gareth said, they are all expandable and modular. So you got your e-stop, you've got a screen to tell you which nodes have been pressed, you get a system ready and a power light. And then on the back of it, you can see we have a ton of connectors, because this is that showstopper accessory output that can then, this can daisy and squid out to break out to bring a lot of different devices. This is an accessory hub that does that. And then you can see here, these are the 10 outputs that you get on the back that can run to a specific stagehand. And then this can run into wireways, runs out to those drive connections, things like that. And then down below here, these are patch panels for, if you've got conduit and you're running through the building, this is where you bridge the gap and land those terminations to get into cable land. So this is for the accessory, and this is for the e-stop outputs. Yeah. So you can just keep chunking on hubs and patch panels wherever you want as you build your system out. And then the other thing to note is this is a stagehand. This has our variable frequency drive and our motion control card and circuit protection. You got local jog right on the screen. You get some diagnostics and statuses back about what's going on with your axis. And then, like we said, connectors. We love connectors. So yeah, this is Stagehand Pro. So this goes out to your motor. This is all your limits, encoders, all those things. E-stop, Ethernet. And then this is an interlock connector for if you've got, astrogoals or any of the other stuff that you need to interlock to stop a machine. This is our rack mount version that goes into a standard 19-inch rack. We also have ones that will mount to like our power lift or any of the package hoists, and then there's also custom flavors that are more like a NEMA cabinet with a faceplate on it. So it comes in lots of shapes and sizes, but this one is our bread and butter.
Yeah, and if you want to maybe just come over here to one of the equipment racks as well, we can totally talk through so here they are racked up, and it's probably worth mentioning too, just as you were talking about, Cody, like it's a very versatile packaging, right? So this was the rack mount version, which we will certainly use like in touring and temporary setups for performance, but these can also be racked up permanently in venues as well. Or, as you mentioned, they come in form factors where you can bolt them directly to the machines in kind of what we call a smart machine configuration, so that would be bolted to the machine and it'd be distributed around the theater. So you can have kind of a centralized system where everything's in a kind of taking the place of a traditional MCC, but it would just be an equipment rack, or you can be distributed out, or you can have a mix and match. It's very flexible in the topology there. But if you want to show off just like some of the feedback you get on the display screen and everything, that might be helpful.
Yeah, so you get all your limit status, interlocks, all stops, any cross groove, any of the faults you'll see here. And then you get the axis's name and its IP address and its connection status. If you start to see other faults, drive faults, things like that, you'll get a scrolling list here. The name will go away and you'll start to get some of the feedback there. You get live ability to jog, so you can see that the encoder, you see the counts, you can see if it has a load cell, you'll see the weight, and then you'll see what our current jog percentage is. And you'll see as we're counting. So as you're installing, commissioning, troubleshooting, any of those things, right from the stagehand's faceplate, you can get all that information and feedback to know if things are working as intended. There's a couple more options in one layer deep. You click the wheel to say, change out a spare, add a new axis, anything like that. It's as simple as changing the IP address here, and then you're done, you're good to go. There's no dip switches, hard coding, anything like that. It's all pretty easy. The other thing you can do is on hoists that have 2 brakes, you can also perform a brake test. So you can independently fire the brakes to ensure that they are working. The push stick doesn't have a load brake, so that's a pretty unimpressive button at the moment. But yeah.
And then just worth saying too that if you were to say press both at the same time, it'll automatically engage both brakes, so you don't accidentally drop the load by trying to outsmart it.
That is not the danger button. We've prevented that.
Did you mention overrides?
I didn't mention overrides, but I can. Yeah, so you get momentary overrides that you can, as you're bumping through and troubleshooting things, if you've ran into a limit, say the alt limit and you need to drive off of it, you can come up to the faceplate and override that locally. You have to be local to do these overrides, and you do get feedback at the console that something is overridden, so like, hey, I should move that. Someone's overriding something.
Important to point out that for the J.R. Clancy traditional hoists that we had in the past, there used to be a maintenance pendant. So now with the access to local controls at the stagehand, you don't need a maintenance pendant. Each hoist is able to be remotely jogged.
Right, that's a good point. And then just to add on that override, that it's also signaled back to the console. So you actually see that the override has been activated. So if you're at the desk, you will see that it's being overridden. That also gets logged in the performance log, so that we, if we're sifting through trying to find out what went wrong, we get to see all of those actions that took place in the system and see when something was overridden, for instance.
Totally.
Yeah. Oops, should we make our way back to the
Yeah.
make our way back to the main camera shot?
Yeah.
One other thing I like to point out with this setup is the fact, we brought up connectorization a lot, right? But one of the really awesome and key parts of that is the fact that if something goes down, you can unplug it, unbolt it, and send it back to us. We fix it. You don't have to show up on site and fix it. It's cheaper to ship it to us. You could have a spare.
You could have a spare, right? It also
You
makes
could
it easy.
cross-plug.
Oh, yes, right, exactly. So for troubleshooting, basic troubleshooting, you can actually just cross-plug, like you said, from this machine's stagehand to another one to see, like, is it the cable? Is it the stagehand? Is it the machine that's having a problem? So that flexibility is really great, especially for the end user, right? Like, once the system is installed and everyone's walked away and you're running the venue, having that freedom to be able to kind of service your own equipment in that way is pretty great.
Totally.
Yeah, and if you have space on your system, like Cody pointed out, with any of those drive connections, right? If you wanted to add a turntable that you didn't have,
Yes.
you could rent it from us, or you could purchase a push stick for if you wanted some deck tracks, and it's very easy to add it to your show file and remove it for the ones that don't need it, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. The whole thing is very flexible and modular, so that yes, just as you said, Andy, like if you have a system installed for the facility work for most of the time, but then you have a show that the theater group wants to do one time, and they want to do Oklahoma, and they want to put a turntable out there. Just rent in the turntable, and you can jack it into one of the drive connections, and literally, and actually, if you could show the screen, Christian, literally, it's no joke, as simple as this. You have a machine library there. You can just drag and drop down your machine into the show. Oh, except that we're not authorized to do that in this. We have to authorize as a higher level.
Yeah. But it's that simple, and imagine.
Exactly. So if we log out and log back in as admin, we can add in a show.
I see what we did.
And this is authorization working for you. And now if we do that, we punch in a diameter of the turntable, and we've added a turntable to the show, right? So there's our turntable. So as long as you're authorized to add another axis into the system, it's just as simple as drag and drop.
And then you set the IP address, boop, 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 you're done, you're patched, you're ready to go.
Yeah.
Right. And
That simple.
not only that, but like thinking about the future of what you could have in your space, right? You don't have to think about that at the initial install to have an infrastructure for more. It's 10 years from now, right?
Right. Yeah, you could very conceivably put 6 line sets into a theater, and at some point put 12 more axes of automation in, and never have thought about that way at the beginning.
Right.
And also, you can just kind of vary that over time. One of the things that we've seen on the kind of performance end of the spectrum is, especially in cities where there's a concentration of folks using Spikemark, folks will even just borrow equipment around, right?
Right.
So like not everybody needs to have every piece of equipment that they need for any show. Like it's like, oh, but those people have 2 deck winches, so I'm going to borrow them for this show, and I'm going to loan them my turntable for the next show, and it's a real nice way for the community to be able to get what they need for their shows. That's why I'm not in sales. I'm like, and the best part is you don't have to buy it all.
Questions?
Did I mention the software's free?
Oh my God.
All right, we're down to the final few minutes here, but we got any other questions pop up? Or?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Oh yeah, she said.
Mike and I have been working through them, but there's a few that I think will be good to answer.
Okay, great. Yeah.
Live and in person. So I think one of the big ones.
Skincare routine. That's how I look this young.
How'd you know? One of the ones from Joshua
Yes.
is what's happening with Vantis now? Is it officially gone? And is it possible to upgrade any existing Clancy control system to the Spikemark system?
Fantastic question. So maybe you want to take the first half of that, and I'll take the second half?
Yeah, absolutely. So we are still supporting Vantis. We are not selling Vantis anymore. However, we are supporting Vantis. So we will take care of Vantis just like with any of our older control systems and make sure you are moving and working the way you need to.
Absolutely. In fact, I mean, just as an example of this, right, I don't think I'm telling anything out of school. Like, we just did some work on the Vantis pendant to get better supply availability of the original Vantis pendant screens, right? So there's ongoing work from a maintenance perspective on Vantis. In terms of upgrading systems, absolutely. So it does vary a bit in terms of pricing, depending on what kind of system you have, just literally because there's more work or less work depending on how compatible the infrastructure is. But we are upgrading basically any system, so literally any system. So prior to acquisition, we were, Creative Connors had been upgrading old Clancy systems as well as old Vortex systems and others. So if you've got a system that you'd like us to take a look at and get upgraded to Spikemark, please reach out. Pete Veal is the head of those efforts on the sales side. But any of us will happily talk to you about it.
Right. I think it's fair to also say that if we've already sold you a Vantis system, if we're shipping it like next week,
It's going to be Vantis.
it's going to be Vantis.
Yeah.
But you know, if there's some time before that project is installed, there may be a conversation there, right?
Correct.
All
Yep.
depends
We
on
are
time.
analyzing. Yeah, we're analyzing kind of the backlog of Vantis systems that were scheduled to go out, and then contacting customers about the potential to have those switched to Spikemark systems instead.
Sweet. Yeah, that led into another question, which already answers it, which is that can Spikemark Vantis control hoists and machines from other manufacturers, non-Clancy or Scenic machines?
Yes.
But of course.
With pleasure.
Okay.
And to put to set expectations a little bit around that too. That is never as simple as just getting the Vantis pendant, right? That's going to be having some form factor of stagehand control as well. So those stagehands that Cody was demoing, right? That's a bit of the magic sauce in there as well, because that's the motion controller that is the interface between the motor and Spikemark, is that device. But there are different levels of that depending on what your system is.
Awesome.
But
Sweet.
we're unfazed by other people's motors or hydraulic systems or whatever. What you got?
I already answered this one, but I think it'll be great to say out loud. Is there a limit to the number of axes that can be controlled by the Vantis pendant and the number of axes that can be run simultaneously?
Oh my goodness. Thank you for that softball. So I'll let you guys.
Sure. Yeah. I mean,
Go for it.
Yeah, Cody's grabbing it now, but ultimately you have access to an unlimited axes. Access to axes.
Yeah, I will say that we haven't seen too too far north of 100 axes on the system currently, so it would be a little disingenuous to say that we've done a lot more than that, but we haven't had any issues going 100 plus axes on the system. In terms of how many you can simultaneously run, I think it's 20.
Yeah.
Right? So it would be 20 because it's really limited by the number of tiles that you can see. We don't want you to be jogging things that you can't see at once and keep track of. So once that kind of screen runs out of real estate, which is where he's about to be, he's in that last row, then it stops letting you add more to it. Now, there's some caveats in there too. Like if you had one of those tiles could be a group that has many axes, so you could be technically running more axes, they're just grouped together. And then when you're running sequences, there's really no limit. So if it's programmed into a sequence, you can run kind of an unlimited number.
Fantastic. In regards to updating the pendant, is this as simple as a normal push from Spikemark, similar to updating the stagehands? Yes, as long as you don't have a pendant V1. If you have a pendant V1, like we mentioned,
it might be that simple, but you might run into trouble, in which case we need to send you an SD card. There's just a little bit of magic in there. Christian says to call Mike, and Mike will promptly walk over to Christian's desk, but you can certainly call Mike. Sure.
Okay. So many questions. For permanent installs, are the stagehands going to be mounted to the hoist frame and permanently wired, or will the drive need to be wired to the motor encoder limits on site by an electrician?
So, yes, it all depends, right? But assuming that there is access to the hoists, we would prefer to mount the stagehand directly to the hoist. The hardwiring bit is where I would say it's not exactly what you'd imagine. So it will still all be connectorized. If we're doing a retrofit where the hoists exist, what we'll be doing is we'll be coming in with a junction box and affixing that to the hoist and hardwiring all of your sensors to the junction box, and then there are soft tails coming out of there that plug into the stagehand. The thing that we're mostly religious about is keeping everything connectorized so that it is easily swappable. And I say mostly because it's not as though we never do a fully hardwired system. There are some times when that really makes sense. And where an example that comes up is like, say, scoreboard hoists. When we do a scoreboard hoist, the likelihood that you're going to swap out a 50 horsepower cabinet is pretty low. So we're going to just go ahead and hardwire it and save on the connectors and all that stuff. And it will not be the normal modular thing. But the gig there is that we don't have another 50 horse bespoke custom cabinet for the scoreboard sitting on the shelf here that we could swap out for you. But if you're buying if it's a stock size of stagehand, whether it's Stagehand Pro, Stagehand Line Set, Stagehand Apprentice, those are going to be connectorized so that we can exchange them with ease.
Moving back quickly to the safety system.
Yeah.
Is there a limit to the number of e-stops in the system? Ooh. And is there a distance limit from the e-stop to the main rack?
Yes. Yes, next question. No, so yeah, there are limits on all of those things. I mean, you have something like it's 3-point-something amps worth of emergency stop output from each base, and then you have to have another hub to get more output. So that's all, it's a slightly dissatisfying answer, but it means that they come with stock with 10 outputs. So you can have up to 10 stagehands connected to a showstopper base or hub, and then you have to link out to another base or hub to kind of repeat the signal. But the real limitation there is actually just the current output on that 24-volt signal. So you maybe can have more than 10 outputs, and especially in a permanently installed system, we would probably be able to stab in more to that single circuit.
Yeah, it's like 2 amps on the output, and each e-stop is like 0.8 amps. So you'd get many.
Yeah. The limitation in terms of distance, it all comes, so there's kind of inputs and outputs, right? So the outputs going out to the contactors, the safety relays inside of each Stagehand, the biggest problem there is just voltage drop over the gauge of wire you have. So we have tables that will tell you how far away you can be. It's quite a distance, so we're into the thousands of feet kind of range. And then on the input side, in terms of how many emergency stop, like say input buttons you can have, similarly, yeah, you are limited. I again don't remember that off the top of my head about what that distance is, because on that chain, but it's well north of 1,000 feet of signaling cable through that. 2,000 something. So, but again, we have charts for all of that stuff. In terms of number of e-stops, and you're not really limited by that. It's really more just about the distance that you can travel on the safety chain. I'm trying to think, we were like 30-ish e-stops on SJT. So, yeah, I mean, but I wouldn't hesitate to say we could go 50-ish. I mean, you can get quite a few. The way those are all ID'd, we do limit the number of IDs, because each button that you press, there's kind of two things that play there electrically. We have the honest God safety circuit, but then we also are running a CAN network through every emergency stop input, so that we can register which emergency stop was triggered and signal that back to Spikemark. So we kind of artificially limit that to 127. I say artificially because the CAN network is limited to 127 devices. Every base or hub is literally its own CAN master. But just for convenience, we're like, yeah, but that's kind of a pain, because then you got to figure out which universe of CAN that you're dealing with. So we just say overall, we just stop it at 127, because we're also like, who needs more than 127 e-stops?
Challenge
and if you're the guy who needs 128, then I'm sorry.
You heard it.
All right, I think we are at time. There's a couple more questions, but we can offline answer some of them.
For sure.
So that we can wrap up here.
Yeah.
But that was great. Thank you for answering.
Yeah, absolutely. Those were some great questions. Thanks everyone for it. So I want to thank everybody once again for joining us in this last hour. I hope that it was useful for you guys. It was certainly a ton of fun for us. We're very excited about the new products and about the integration that we have with Creative Connors, Texas Scenic, JR Clancy, all coming together and killing it on the automation spectrum. We're pretty jazzed about it. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks. See you.